Imagine a city with a population of 75,000. It has bus routes, it has schools, it has grocery stores. But if you looked at a map in 1943, this city didn't exist. If you drove down the road towards it, you'd be stopped by armed guards before you even saw the smoke. Tens of thousands of workers clocking in every single day. And here is the terrifying part. Not a single one of them knew what they were building. They were turning dials, monitoring gauges, processing raw materials. But the final product, that was a secret so expensive, it required a blank check from the United States Treasury. We are taught that the Manhattan Project was a breakthrough in physics. We are wrong. It was a breakthrough in finance. It was the moment the government learned it could hide an entire economy inside a black box. $2 billion in 1940s money vanished. No audit, no questions, no paper trail. Today we're going to open that black box. Because the mechanism they built in 1942, it's still running today, and you are still paying for it. Welcome to the most expensive secret in history. To understand the scale of this financial anomaly, you have to understand the value of $1 in 1942. $2 billion then is roughly equivalent to $30 to $50 billion today. But that comparison is weak. It's lazy. You have to look at it as a percentage of the total economy. This was a colossal drain on resources during a time when every scrap of metal was rationed. How do you spend that kind of money without Congress noticing, without the press asking questions? You don't use a bank account, you use a labyrinth. The architects of the Manhattan Project didn't just split the atom, they split the budget. They scattered the costs across thousands of different department codes. Construction, rural development, synthetics. This is the birth of the black budget. The concept that some expenditures are too dangerous for the public to know. But money is like energy. It cannot be created or destroyed without leaving a trace. It has to come from somewhere. In physics, every action has a reaction. In economics, every expenditure has a cost. If the government prints money to build a secret city, that money eventually enters the real economy. The workers at Oak Ridge got paid. They took those dollars and bought bread. They bought shoes. This creates a phantom pressure. Demand goes up, but the supply of goods, the actual stuff, doesn't exist. Because the factory wasn't making shoes. It was making a device that would be dropped once and never used again. This is the definition of malinvestment on a planetary scale. And when you malinvest on that scale, the only way to pay for it is by diluting the currency in your pocket. Let's look at the specific engineering of this theft. Not the nuclear engineering, the financial engineering. The project needed copper, massive amounts of copper for the electromagnetic coils to separate isotopes. But copper was needed for shell casings on the front lines. There wasn't enough. So they went to the only place that had a substitute metal with high conductivity, the United States Treasury. They borrowed 14,700 tons of pure silver bullion. Think about that. The money backing the US dollar wasn't in the vault anymore. It was melted down, drawn into wire, and wound around magnets in Tennessee. For 3 years, the backing of the currency was literally functioning as an industrial machine part. If the public knew the treasury was empty, confidence would have collapsed. But secrecy is the ultimate hedge. General Leslie Groves, the man in charge, wasn't just a military leader. He was a CEO of a ghost corporation. He acquired land by eminent domain. He evicted families in Washington state and New Mexico with weeks' notice. He proved a terrifying thesis. If the emergency is big enough, property rights are optional. And what about the labor? This is where the psychology gets dark. Compartmentalization. It's a fancy word for planned ignorance. A woman would spend 10 hours a day adjusting a dial to keep a needle in the green zone. If she asked what the needle measured, she was fired. If she asked what the machine did, she was investigated. This created a workforce that was highly efficient and completely morally detached from the outcome. It is the ultimate corporate dream. Absolute utility, zero liability. When the device was finally tested in the desert, the cost wasn't just the explosion. The cost was the precedent it set. The government realized they could mobilize infinite capital for a single objective. And as long as they labeled it national security, no one was allowed to check the receipt. This brings us to the ripple effect. Because the Manhattan Project never really ended, it just changed names. Before 1940, The US military was small. Budgets were debated down to the penny. After 1945, the black budget became a permanent fixture of the American economy. President Eisenhower saw this coming. He called it the military-industrial complex. But he wasn't just talking about tanks and guns. He was talking about the flow of money. When you have a sector of the economy that has an unlimited credit card and zero competition, it acts like a black hole. It sucks talent, resources, and capital away from everything else. Why do our bridges crumble while our surveillance tech is state-of-the-art? Because one is a public budget, debated in the open. The other is a Manhattan Project. Look at the internet. GPS. Microchips. All born from this same model. State-funded research, hidden by secrecy, eventually handed over to the private sector to monetize. You might say, but we got the internet out of it. Isn't that good? Perhaps, but look at the price tag, not the tax price tag, the inflation price tag. Every dollar printed for a black budget project dilutes the dollar in your savings account. It is a silent tax. You don't see it on your pay stub, you see it at the grocery store. The Manhattan Project proved that if the fear is high enough, the population will accept the cost. In 1942, the fear was the Axis powers. In 2026, what is the fear? A virus, a cyber attack, climate collapse? The narrative changes, but the mechanism is identical. Identify a threat. Declare an emergency. Suspend fiscal responsibility. Print the money. And just like the workers at Oak Ridge, you are turning the dials without knowing what you are building. You are working, saving, and investing in a system that extracts value from you to fund things you aren't allowed to see. So, what happens when the next Manhattan Project isn't a bomb, but a digital currency, or an artificial intelligence grid that requires more energy than the entire current grid produces? The capital is already being allocated. The inflation is already baked in. If you are holding paper currency, you are holding the receipt for their spending. History shows us that when the state needs resources for survival, they don't ask. They take. They took the silver from the Treasury. They took the land from the farmers. The only protection is to hold assets that cannot be printed. Tangible things, land, gold, commodities, skills that have utility outside the system. The secret city was successful because it was self-contained. It had its own power, its own rules. You need to build your own personal economy with that same mindset. Stop trusting the official numbers. The official inflation rate is a curated lie, just like the maps that erased Oak Ridge. The real cost of the system is hidden in the degradation of your purchasing power. The Manhattan Project taught the government that secrets are expensive, but the public pays the bill. Don't be the worker blindly turning the dial. Be the one who knows what the machine actually does. We are living through the next phase of this experiment right now. The budget is black, the debt is infinite, and the question you need to answer is simple. When the next emergency requires your wealth to solve it, will you have anything left to protect? Or will you be erased from the economic map? Do you think we are on the verge of another massive emergency spending cycle? Tell me your theory in the comments. If you're ready to look deeper than the official story, hit subscribe. Reality is hidden in plain sight. I'll show you where to look.